I desexualized my mind in 30 days. Here's how I did it. The first thing that I did to desexualize my mind in 30 days was I eliminated PMO for 30 days. Now, what is PMO? PMO is this. I don't want to say it because I don't want to get demonetized and I have to pay the editor somehow. But eliminating PMO was the first thing that I did to desexualize my mind. And quite frankly, it's the only thing that I did to desexualize my mind because everything else that I'm going to talk about in this video is a direct result of me eliminating PMO with a practice that I like to call no PMO. I've talked a lot about nofap in the past on this channel, but moving forward, I'm going to refer to it as no PMO because it's a lot more straightforward. There's pretty much no need to question what it means. It literally says it in the name, no PMO. So I did no PMO for 30 days. That elicits the question, how did I do no PMO for 30 days? This is the million-dollar question that millions and millions of young men like myself do not have the answer to. How do you go about eliminating PMO? Well, first you have to understand why you're addicted to PMO in the first place. You see, for a long time, I associated all of my negative experiences in my young adult life with PMO addiction. And I wasn't mistaken in that belief. What I've realized now, however, is that it's not so much that PMO causes all of the problems, it's that PMO perpetuates problems. PMO permits problems to occur because you're using it as a form of escapism. You're using it as a means of controlling your life when you feel like you don't have control over other aspects of your life. And for me, whenever I started to go through financial turmoil in 2022, which led to me living in my car for 3 months, I quickly unraveled all of the confidence and the belief in myself that I had established over the previous few years. And because of that, I developed a very strong and very nasty victim complex. Now, if you're addicted to PMO, I can guarantee that you have a victim complex. Whether you're aware of it or not is another matter. Personally, I wasn't aware of mine until a little over 30 days ago, or actually closer to 60 days ago, whenever I started this no PMO journey, once and for all. And what I realized was that I needed to take control of my life, not for a moment, which was projected through this momentary pleasure and instant gratification and this dopamine rush, but through my day-to-day actions. You see, the main mindset shift that allowed me to eliminate PMO from my life was realizing that I am in control of my destiny. I realized that I am free in this universe to construct whatever life I would like to live. If I'm not happy with my current situation, that means that I have made decisions in the past that created the reality that I am currently living in. Therefore, I can make decisions right now that will create a better reality for my future self to live in. And ever since I realized that, everything changed. Suddenly, no PMO became a walk in the park. It became automatic. And I finally understood, once again, I had to remember this because, again, I already had the self-belief before, and if you haven't followed my channel up to this point, I had already gone on no PMO streaks before, but I had to remember that I am in control of my destiny. And because I'm in control of my destiny, I don't need to seek a temporary escape from a life that I don't like. I need to seek a permanent escape to a life that I do like, because I am in sole control of creating that life. It is my responsibility. Now, once I realized that I am in control of my life, what did I do? Well, the first thing that I did from that point on was I redefined my self-identity. Now, you don't have to go to the extreme like I did, but here are some of the things that I personally did to redefine my self-identity. Because, newsflash, you are always going to be addicted to PMO. You're watching this because you're addicted to PMO, and you don't know how to get rid of your addiction. You are always going to be addicted. There's nothing that you can do about that. But you can change who you are. and become a version of yourself who isn't addicted. And in doing so, you can inherit the life that that version of you is already living. Just imagine how much better your life would be without PMO. And when you start to imagine that on a frequent basis and you start to add emotion to your imagination, suddenly your reality starts to reflect that. Whole different discussion for a whole different day. That's manifestation, the law of assumption, and I'll touch on that in future videos. But for now, you need to understand that you are in control of your own life and you are in control of who you are, more importantly, because who you are determines the life that you live. So what are some of the things that I personally did to redefine my identity? For starters, I moved to a different country. Now, this wasn't my intention. I didn't just move all the way across the world to a different continent to do no PMO. That was not the reason why I moved here. I moved here because this is where my girlfriend lives, and it was much easier for me to move here than it was for her to move to America. That is it. However, as an added side benefit, I was able to detach from my old identity, which naturally echoed in the back of my mind with every day that I spent in my hometown that I grew up in. And I ditched that identity for a new identity, which is the identity that I'm currently living in right now. And a big part of that was me moving to a different continent. Now, you don't have to move to a different continent to make that happen, but it's definitely good to start distancing yourself from your environment, especially if your environment is a place that you've spent the majority or the entirety of your adolescence, your childhood, so on and so forth. And once you can distance yourself from your hometown or from whatever environment is keeping you stuck, now you can give yourself permission to redefine who you are. Now, once I moved to a different continent, what are some of the things that I started to do from a day-to-day standpoint? Obviously, living in a different country, in a different continent, means that my day-to-day life is different. But what are some of the other more minuscule things, the more trivial things that you wouldn't necessarily think of? For starters, I started waking up at 6:30 a.m. Now, I'll be the first to admit that I am not perfect with this. There have definitely been some days where I literally slept straight through the alarm and there was nothing I could do about it. But I no longer go to sleep at 6:30 a.m. like I did just 4 months ago. I wake up at 6:30 a.m. and it was literally an overnight change. Once I realized that I have free will and that I'm in control of my decisions, I realized I don't need to identify with labels that I've placed on myself in the past, such as being a night owl, for example. I was a night owl for the first 22 and a half to 23 years of my life. At age 24, I decided I am a morning person. Simply put, I'm a morning person, and I've held true to that identity since I decided that. Now, the next thing I did was I changed my appearance. I shaved my goatee. I got my hair braided. You don't have to go to that extent, but I changed my appearance because I realized that if I want to go somewhere that I've never been, I have to become someone that I've never been before. And I created an appearance, a physical avatar that allowed me to see myself in a new light. I haven't looked this way since I was 12 or 11 when I had braids as a kid. The point that I'm making is that I changed my external physical appearance in order to shift my perception of who I am on a day-to-day basis. Because now every time I look in the mirror, I see a different person looking back at me, literally, than I did a couple of months ago when I was still struggling with PMO. Now, there are a few other things that I did. For example, I switched from bar soap to liquid soap. I switched from bar deodorant to spray deodorant, and a bunch of other minuscule things like that. But the point that I'm making is I shifted as many things as I possibly could about my behavior and my self-perception. And the way that I did that was I used my free will. Now, I also used my free will in conjunction with no PMO in a very powerful way. And that is sexual transmutation. Now, what is sexual transmutation? Sexual transmutation is when you take all of the energy that you would have otherwise spent on PMO and you place it into something that is much more purposeful and fulfilling. In other words, you trade your instant gratification and the dopamine rushes for long-term delayed gratification and fulfillment, a sense of true inner satisfaction that cannot be replaced with pleasure. And if you've never experienced this before, then of course it's going to be very difficult to visualize this for yourself. However, I believe that it's embedded within all of us. Purpose, passion, and the pursuit thereof is embedded within all of us. That is why we are here. We are here to expand. We are expansive beings. Evolution, or whatever you want to call it. We are here to expand. We are here to grow and get better. And what I realized was that a big part of why I was struggling with PMO, and by extension, desexualizing my mind, was because I didn't have any goals. I no longer had goals or a mission or a purpose for my life. I was just doing things for the sake of doing them, which can be good at times for certain seasons of your life. But I also had to surrender to the fact that I do like to chase goals, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's not that the goal is going to bring me satisfaction that I can't already experience now. It's that now I understand that the journey is the destination, but without a destination, there's no journey to be had. If there's no destination, there's no reason to not be stagnant. There's no reason to not stay where you are in life. And so I started to set goals. I created a vision board. I'm not going to show the vision board just yet. I'll show it once my girlfriend and I accomplish things on the vision board, but I created a vision board along with my girlfriend, and we both put it on the desktop backgrounds of our computers so that we could be reminded every single day of why we're doing what we're doing. And now I have something to use my energy toward. I have a mission toward which I can expend as much of that energy that I was previously wasting on PMO as possible. And as a natural result, I've desexualized my mind even further. So, in other words, it all comes down to no PMO. If you want to desexualize your mind, well, let me rephrase that. The way that I desexualized my mind was through no PMO. I quit PMO, I desexualized my mind in 30 days, and now I have not only developed a new sense of purpose, but I've developed a new sense of self who is capable of fulfilling that purpose.